Hey, so this is me, of course, because it's my channel. But what I'm doing, pardon me, one, going to try and not press about with my hair like I normally do, and two, going to answer the questions that were left for me. If you remember a while ago, quite a number of videos ago, about 3 weeks ago I think it was now, I asked for you to leave questions and one person did. I'm not going to mention who it is because they didn't say if they wanted the name mentioning or if they didn't, so if you want to know who it was, just look at that video. But they left some good questions, so I'm going to go through as many as I can and try and answer them to the best of my ability. So start with the first one, and that was favourite limited series, 6 issues or less. And that's an easy one. It's one that I think most people would choose. It's a 4-issue series from, I think it was 80, 86, 85, 86. Could be earlier. And that was the Dark Knight's Returns by Frank Miller. For one, it was a pioneer series, writer artist doing story, amazing colour artwork, and the format was quite new as well. It was done in prestige format, so each one was like a mini graphic novel, quite European in style. Yeah, and it was one of the first comics to treat superheroes as a mature story instead of dumbing it down like they normally did, where it's a different villain each week. They had a fight and that was it, and they made some kind of funny quips. So yeah, it changed the face of what you could do with superhero comics. So the next one will be a longer longer answer for the question, and that is favourite artist. Ooh, and I've got a lot of them because I'm a big comic fan and I've been reading comics for about 47 years. So I'll just go through them and elaborate on ones that might need elaborating on. First one, Moebius, or Jean Girard, did Blueberry, and also his science fiction stuff, and he's more well known in America now for the Incal, which he did with Alexandro Jodorowsky, who I've most likely butchered his name on. So yeah, I mean, for me, I think if I had to pick an ultimate artist, it would be him. He can do so many styles. He's so versatile. His use of colour is amazing. His painted artwork is amazing. His line work is just second to none. He can go from very small visualization to large visualization in the same page. So you can have a very small panel with so much detail and so much going on in it, and then a big panel where it's very simple, which a lot of artists would balk at doing that, having as much detail in a small panel like that's crazy. You know, it's unnecessary, but he did the unnecessary, so he could have somebody reclining in a room. I remember there's an old heavy metal strip where there was somebody's bedroom, and he put details in there where he didn't need, but it just added and built on the character. It made you get a better grasp of what the character was without the writer having to tell you about the character's whole backstory, just with the things he had in his bedroom. So yeah, I'd say Moebius is my number one, but all the others are in no order of preference. Of course, for American comics, the king is the king, Jack Kirby. But when I was young, when I was a kid, I hated his artwork. I loved the Fantastic Four. Has always been my favourite Marvel superhero comic, but I always used to enjoy the later ones with what was it? Fuck me, I've had a real brain fart. Oh, I'd like to say, was it John Buscema? I think it was. I think so. I think it was John Buscema. It was either, yeah, because I get John Buscema always mixed up with John Romita, but I think it was John Buscema. If it wasn't, it was John Romita, but I think it was John Buscema. But yeah, I like the cleaner, because I was a kid. I liked things less detailed, less out there. But when I got into my late teens, yeah, I'd say more my 20s, I started hearing about the New Gods, because in the late 80s, early 90s, they reprinted the New Gods in this deluxe series of 6 issues with extra material in, and recoloured it and everything. It looked amazing, and I thought, oh, I'll give that a try, because I've always liked like cosmic storytelling, and that was when it clicked. I had this light bulb moment. I was like, wow, he is just a fucking genius, and nobody can design almost like elemental aliens where they're aliens, but they're on such a magnitude that your brain just can't function. They're an alien, but they're the size of a city. Like with Galactus, for example, the Eternals, New Gods. This whole, he is like the ultimate. For me, nobody does pop art like Jack Kirby. He is the ultimate um, superhero slash sci-fi artist. I'd love to see a luxury format book of the 2001 adaptation that he did. I've only ever seen one or two issues. I've never had the opportunity to buy the full run what he did, but he kind of took the essence of the film and of the book and went wild with it. It's like Kubrick on acid, and I mean Kubrick was like he was on acid anyway, so just fantastic. So yeah, Kirby's up there, and then for one artist who I heard about when I was young, but I never saw enough to really get an opinion, was Will Eisner. And then I got into the Spirit through reprints from this second-hand shop in the 80s when I was a teenager. Um, and yeah, he again, I mean, he was one of the pioneers of doing the graphic novel where doing a whole story without having to collect issues of it with Contract with God. And that book just opened my eyes to the possibilities of what you could do with layouts, where it didn't have to be action. It could be just about human emotion, human interaction. So yeah, he's another one who's been a huge impact on my life for a long, long time. And then another who I got into when I was about 14 or 15, and I shouldn't really, because he was an underground comic. I went back afterwards with collecting comics. From 2000 AD, I've always loved 2000 AD. And I think because I had that sensibility, I always looked for something a bit more weird. So I used to go to this shop on the corner what sold a lot of American import magazines. I used to get Heavy Metal, Epic Illustrated, and I found a comic called Fat Freddy's Cat. And then from there, went to this other second-hand bookshop in Manchester. Had some really interesting comic and bookshops in the 80s. I found this shop that sold underground comics, and they had underground comics. I speak too fast sometimes. And they had a whole batch of the Fabulous Fairy Freak brothers. And I am so straight laced. I drink. I'm a lightweight drinker, so even that's not something. That's not even a vice. So drug culture and the whole hippie counterculture was completely alien to me. But the characters were just fascinating, and I love good cartooning. And Gilbert Shelton just had such an eye for comedic timing with his cartooning that I'd never seen anything like it. I mean, he tackled issues what you couldn't tackle with a serious comic. And he did it in such a way that it was painfully laugh out loud funny sometimes. It's one of those comics where I buy it. Because it looked like a cartoon, my parents never really it never alerted them to the fact what was reading might be deemed not suitable for somebody of my age. But if they ever had, if they'd ever opened it up, oh my god, they'd have banned me from reading comics. So yeah, Gilbert Shelton, another one who's like the cream of the crop for a different style of artwork of underground. Who's like, for me, a lot of people love Robert Crumb. I love Robert Crumb, but Gilbert Shelton was my man. And then talk about 2000 AD. There's three artists from 2000 AD who four artists. I tell a lie. Four. Cam Kennedy, Mick Mann, Kevin O'Neill, and the number one, Carlos Esquera. They, in my eyes, they are four of the best artists in comics. Period. They changed what you could do with children's comics, and they subverted comics from the back door, going in for doing an essentially what's meant to be a children's comic, which is 2000 AD, and they turned it into this punk pamphlet. 2000 AD in the 70s and early 80s was way ahead of anything that DC and Marvel were doing. Without 2000 AD, there'd be no Vertigo. They had Alan Moore on it doing Skiz, Halo Jones. They had John Wagner doing amazing, years ahead of its time, social commentary with Judge Dredd, with Carlos Esquera, Mick Mann, and other people on it. And then you had Pat Mills doing Nemesis with Kevin O'Neill, who of course went on to the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. And of course there's a fifth artist who I love, who started off in 2000 AD, and that's Brian Bolland, who I don't know if you can get a better line artist. And there's a sixth as well, but I'll come to the sixth one later. So yeah, there's that bunch. And then if we go a bit more modern, there's Frank Whiteley, who made his name by doing stuff with Grant Morrison, obviously the Superman saga, what he did. But he also starts off with a Scottish Underground comic called Electric Soup. And then you've got the king of the mainstream, Jim Lee, who's like, I'd say he's now up there for modern comics with Neil Adams. He's like today's version of Neil Adams and Jack Kirby. And then I like his more experimental style. So you've got Bill Sienkiewicz. And I always lump these few people together. So you've got Bill Sienkiewicz, Ted McKeever, Richard Corbin, Mike Mignola, Simon Bisley. All very different to each other, but all pioneers in their own right with the styles what they have. And then moving on from them, you've got mainstream artists, but they've got more of an edge to themselves, more originality. That's Brian Talbot. If there's not a question about favourite writer artist, because Brian Talbot would be up there for me. Brian Talbot, who does Luther Arkwright, did lots of 2000 AD stuff, quite a bit of Vertigo stuff, a bit of Sandman. But he's a top-notch writer as well as artist. Amazing artist. Brendan McCarthy, who did a lot of his more popular stuff with Pete Milligan. Very psychedelic. He was the brains behind. He was the design brains behind Mad Max Fury Road. And then you've got the Hernandez brothers for my indie sensibilities. They are just both of them, Gilbert and Jamie. Mario, never really touched his stuff, but he doesn't do as much as those two. But yeah, those two, amazing. I love the Rockets. If you've never read it, invest in some collected editions of those, because those stories are like nothing else. They're so dense. You grow with the characters. They're just so good. They're on another level completely. And then you've got the painterly style artist John J. Muth, who did. I got exposed to him most with Moonshadow, what he did with James DeMatteis, who was a writer that I love. Kent Williams, who did the Meltdown series with Walt Simonson, another artist who I adore. Again, they've all these artists. They've got their own distinct style. Who it's hard to rip off, really, who it's hard to copy. And then you've got. I just love this guy as a person, a writer, and an artist. Keith Giffen. I loved it when he did his Jose Munoz rip-off style. That's how I first got exposed to him. But then I loved it when he dialed it back and got his own style. I loved his Legion of Superheroes artwork. But he's a great writer as well. And then Mike Allred, who's the new pop art king. And then finally, two that have always blown me away. First one, Dave McKean. He reinvented what he could do with covers for comics. He made comics on a level with books with his comic covers. And then Barry Windsor-Smith, who brought the pre-Raphaelite art style to comics. Just a genius. So that's part one, because I didn't realise these questions would make my mind open up other doors of memories. So that's part one. I'll do part two in a second. Okay, bye.